unmute unless you need me, okay?
Yeah, no, in a while I'm going to use everybody else because otherwise we will have noise on the background. So. Andrea, ricordati di cliccare sul microfono per rimetterti l'audio, eh?
Ok.
Devi...
Perché ora mi silenzi tu?
Sì, adesso devo silenziare tutti.
Ok.
Everybody?
I think so. I guess everybody doesn't have a camera on.
Oh, okay. Okay. So, buonasera tutti. We have today with us Gaetano Minano from Milano, our office in Milano, and we have the pleasure of Andrea Costanti from the Costanti Winery in Montalcino, and Andrea is going to explain, you know, his winery and style and the wine. So, Andrea.
Thank you.
Hi, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Andrea. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, everybody.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining us tonight. It's 8 o'clock in the evening in Montalcino, and we start with the.
Yeah, with Andrea. I'm gonna just mute everybody now, but I think almost everybody is muted. Andrea, if you can unmute yourself now, so we can start. For everybody else, if you have any question, just please unmute yourself, ask the question, and then mute yourself again. What we're gonna do now in this seminar is basically, first of all, seeing where Montalcino and Costanti Winery are located. And then we will see some short video clips made by Andrea from the vineyards and in the winery. To see where the winery and Montalcino are located, we are gonna use Google Earth, as you can see here. This one is basically the map of Italy. And Tuscany is this region, as you can follow the pointer on my mouse. It's quite a large region in Italy, extended from north to the central part of it. And as we can see, just zooming in a bit, this one is Montalcino. So basically it's in the southern part of Tuscany, while Firenze is here. And just zooming a bit more, we can also see in details using this great tool, we can see actually the distance. So if you can see that this here more or less is where Costanti Winery is. The distance from Firenze is around 50 miles. The distance from Siena is around 20 miles, more or less. And also it's important the distance from the sea, which is around 40 miles. And now, it's also important to see, let me admit everybody else. It's also important to see here from this view, then this one is the Chianti Classico wine region. And so Montalcino and Chianti Classico wine region are pretty close to each other. Let's zoom even more to see better the Montalcino area, which is this area with the blue borders. Within this area, where we can see there are 5 other areas in Montalcino that are, let's say, the most vocated for the production of Brunello. Andrea, now it's your turn. Could you tell us more about Montalcino and Brunello?
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, perfectly.
Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. So I am going to explain a little bit the territory of Montalcino that you see in detail in the map. The area of Montalcino is quite big. It's one of the biggest areas of common in Italy, since it's 24,000 hectares. I don't know, maybe you understand hectares. Hectares is maybe 2.5 acres. But you must consider that more than the half of the territory is covered by wood. But the vineyards are not very, so we don't have a lot of vineyards. So we have 4,000 hectares in total, and also only 2,000 hectares with Sangiovese for the production of Brunello and Rosso di Montalcino. So that means in Montalcino vineyards, there is a lot of vineyards, but it's not very concentrated like places like Burgundy or some areas of Langhe where you see only vineyards. The south border of, Gaetano explained very well the special position of Montalcino, the hill of Montalcino, comparing with Siena, and especially comparing with the seaside, because we can see that Montalcino has more or less the same kind of soil of Chianti, but the weather is a little bit different since it's more influenced from the seaside, from the winds coming from south and southwest, warm winds. And if you go, the south border of the area of Montalcino is the Orcia River, and the west border is the Ombrone river. If you cross the two rivers, you are in the Maremma area. Costanti is located a little far from this position. Is a little bit, is very close to the village, to Montalcino. Is only 1.5 miles far from the town, and is located in the most classical area for the production of Brunello di Montalcino. Also, if the territory of Montalcino is not very big, there is differences between the different zones, and Costanti vineyards are located at between 400 and 460 meters on the sea level, so it's a very good altitude. And so then we see the images of the videos and of the winery. We are located in the most classical area of production of Montalcino, and Costanti is one of the names which appears in the creation of the Brunello di Montalcino in the second part of 19th century. So you know, everybody knows Biondisanti because as the father of Brunello. The Brunello was born in the second part of 19th century, and so the new way of production was a sort of revolution in the way to make the wine in Tuscany, because we started to produce a wine using 100% of Sangiovese. That's different from all the other areas, Chianti Classico or Nobile di Montepulciano or Morellino di Scanzano, where producers use Sangiovese but blending with another varieties, also white. And this is also the reason of the name Brunello, because we started to produce a wine using only red varieties, only Sangiovese, and we started to produce a wine much more dark, much more rich in color than in the past, with using also white varieties. And Brunello means, so we can translate as a pretty dark. And Costanti was involved in the creation of the Brunello. One of my ancestors, Tito Costanti, in 1870, presented a wine called Brunello, one of the first acknowledgement of name Brunello in a label of wine. Unfortunately, and the wine was from 1865 vintage. So it was presented 5 years after the vintage. So unfortunately, I don't have the bottles. I only have papers, and that's why Biondisanti is because they is more famous also because they have in the winery 3 bottles of 1888 vintage, which are actually the oldest bottles of Brunello existing in the world.
Mm-hmm. And what about what makes this area, Andrea, so special? What about the soil? What about the disposition?
So it's very important that so this classical area is first we have a very good altitude. Montalcino is a little more, Montalcino, the town is 560 meters on the sea level. And for reaching the winery, we go at it maybe 100 meters less in altitude, since the vineyards all around the property are located between 400 and 460, 65 meters on the sea level. So the area is not very warm because some vineyards are also are at the top of the small hill, which makes the property, and some vineyards have a northeast exposure. And so we see all the vineyards. So first we start. The place is called Colle al Matrichese. Is the name that you see also on the label. With Costanti is the name of the family, and Colle al Matrichese is the name of the place of the crew where we produce the wines, where we have vineyards. And Colle al Matrichese, Colle means hill, as you know, and Matrichese is coming from the Latin name Mater Ecclesia, which means Mother of the Church. It was the name of a church which was in this area more than 1,000 years ago. And my family is living in this place since the second part of 16th century. They came from Siena at the end of the war between Siena and Florence in 1555. And they always produce wine there together with the olive oil. So now we only have vineyards and olive trees at the winery.
So here around the winery, it's only Sangiovese.
Here we only have Sangiovese. I also have 1 hectare of Merlot, but is still in the area of Montalcino, but a little far from the winery. And because I had the occasion more than 20 years ago to buy some lands in the Montosoli area, which is a very good area in Montalcino, very vocated for the vineyards, but is a little different from Costanti. So when I decided to plant vineyards, since I have less altitude in that place, and the soil is a little different because it's very rich in clay, and I don't have any clay at Colle al Matrichese. I decided to do something completely different, and I planted Merlot. So here, the vineyards you see, I only have Sangiovese. The quality of the soil is very important because it's very rocky. There's no clay in the vineyards. So during the video, we will see the coat of arms of my family on a big rock. This is a big rock of Galestro, which is the kind of soil which makes the hill of Montalcino. And the Galestro, with the erosion, with the wind, with the frost, with the rain, with the animals, becomes a mix of, the rock becomes a mix of stones and sand. We'll see in the video, and it's very good for the, we have the same kind of soil in some part of Chianti. They also have Galestro.
And what about, Andrea, the average age of the vines and the train system that you use in the vineyards?
So the traditional way of growing the vines in my area is cordon spur. It is a very good way to keep the right quality, the right quantity of grapes to control the quantity. So anyway, we have vintages in which we have naturally more quantity, and other like usually the warmer vintages we have 12 in the past or 70 we have less quantity, but usually we are very low, the maximum quantity allowed by the law, and the total. So the average in the last 20 years is about 40 to 45 tons of grape. So it means 35 hectoliters, so 30 to 35 hectoliters of wine every hectare.
And the average age of the vine, more or less?
Is between 0.7 the maximum 1 kilo.
No, the age of the vine.
The age, okay. The average age of the vines is between 45 actually and 10 years old. So if you look at the map, the more north vineyard called Martiricasino, the small triangle, okay, that one is the new. I replanted in 2000 and now is in production for 5 years. So this is a work that we do for more than 1 century at the winery. Every 20-25 years we take off a little piece of vineyards and we replant the vines in the same place.
And talking, Andrea, about the
actually,
you were talking before about the vintages. Why would you choose not to produce a Riserva or Brunello in a certain vintages here?
I'm personally running the winery since 1983, and I started very well with a very good vintage. But 1 year later, I had a disaster, one of the worst vintage of the history of Brunello, 1984. Then I didn't produce the Brunello. Then I didn't produce Brunello in 2002, and recently in 2014. So the idea is to produce a good wine, and I didn't trust in the spec. So we talk about the last one, which is 14. My idea was to produce a good wine, and according with my standard, the standard of the winery, in my opinion, 14 was not at the level of Costanti. So I prefer to produce a very good Rosso di Montalcino with 2 years of wood aging instead of the 3 of the Brunello. I prefer to produce a good Rosso di Montalcino instead of a Brunello that I didn't like, and also that can too much stress from the wood, and not absolutely with no possibility of aging at all. Between Brunello and Brunello Riserva, I am very severe in producing Riserva, because Brunello is a very important wine. Only Brunello in the label means a good wine, a great wine. So when I produce Riserva, so Riserva for me is the best wine I have in terms of aging, in terms of longevity, in one of the great vintages of Brunello. So the last Riserva, the winery, the last decade was 2010, of course, 12, 15 and 16, and in the future 19. In the 10 previous years, I did produce Riserva in 2004, 2006, and 2007. So the average is 3-4 vintages every 10. I don't like to produce Riserva too often, because when you produce the Riserva, you must have something special, something outstanding in a great vintage. And I use for the Riserva the wines that I trust very much for the long aging, also because the bottles of Riserva, also because the price, are the bottles which remains for longer in the cellar of or in the wine list of the restaurant. And this is my interpretation of reserve in terms of the very long aging.
Let's move to the video, Andrea. I think.
Okay.
Maybe we have also. Oh, okay. No, let's move to the video. Here we are. Here we see the rock.
Okay, this is the coat of arms of the family, the same you see also on the label, but it's very important, the rock. The rock is coming from underground. When we dig it to plant the vines, I talk of this big rock, and this is a piece of galestro.
So guys, we basically are just outside the winery. This one is the Vignone vineyards.
Vignone, this is Baiocco place, and left you have Toro.
And this video was basically shooted like less than 2 weeks ago now.
Yes, now the shoots are much longer.
Yeah. And this one is on the other side.
Okay, this is Casottino. This is one of the most famous vineyards in Montalcino because it's very. There is a lot of pictures everywhere. Now is one of the icons of Tuscany.
I love it.
Also because we are very close to the road and everybody can shoot and see the vineyards and shoot. But the best picture of this vineyard is a Cindy pictures. I don't know if she shoot maybe 20 years ago from the apartment. Okay, this is the entrance of the house.
This one here on the left is the winery, basically.
Okay, the wisteria with the flowers, 2 weeks ago, 15 days ago.
And this one here on the left, cellar, no?
Okay, this is the entrance of the cellar, the wood aging cellar.
And let's get into the cellar. What do we see here, Andrea?
Okay, this is the part of the winery where I age the wine in wood. As you can see, I'm using 2 different typologies of wood, tonneau and big barrels. Tonneau are 500 liters of size. The barrels are between 25, 30 to 35 hectoliters. And I'm using the tonneau for the first year of aging of the Brunello and for 12 months for the Rosso di Montalcino. I don't make any difference in the vineyard between the grapes I will use for Rosso and the grapes I will use for the Brunello. I have the same, everything is the same, also the fermentation is the same, the vinification is the same. And the reason is very simple, because I don't know in that moment when I prune, when I green prune the vines, when I pick the grapes, I don't know how I will use the grapes. During the season in 2014, I didn't know that I did produce Brunello. And so I try to do the best. And then the first year, after the first year of aging, after 12 months of aging in tonneau, I bottled the Rosso di Montalcino, which is coming from the same vineyards of the Brunello. And the Brunello goes ahead for 2 more years in wood, in this typology of barrels, big and quite old barrels. So it means the Rosso di Montalcino ages for 1 year in wood, and then it goes to the bottle. And the Brunello ages for 3 years in wood, 1 year in tonneau, and 2 years in big barrels. Then I bottle the wine, like I'm doing now with 16. The Brunello ages for 1 more year into the bottle and goes on the market 5 years after the vintage. When I produce Riserva, the aging, the wood aging is exactly the same. I chose the wine for the Riserva with, so in this moment I pay attention to the analysis of the wine. So for the Riserva, I'm using the wine with a little bit more acidity and with a little hard tannins. So usually at bottling time, the Brunello is more approachable than the Riserva, because the Riserva is a wine that we age 2 years after the wood aging in bottle, but we will age very much in the after it goes on the market.
Thank you, Andrea.
Thank you.
Cindy. We're done. Guys, if you have any questions, please feel free.
So, Andrea, could you speak about the importance of acidity and the longevity of the wine, of any wine, but in particular your wines, and how it is that they are typically very long-term wine?
The acidity is very important, not only for the longevity of the wine, because the acidity keeps the wine very alive. And this is due to the particular good acidity is a characteristic of the Sangiovese. And the balance between sugar in the grapes, which means alcohol in the wine, and acidity is the most important characteristic of the Sangiovese. In my area, it's very important the microclimate, since we usually we are between the last to make the harvest in Montalcino, and it's very important the weather in the moment. In the last month, 20 days, the grapes spend on the vineyards, on the vines, because in this moment of the years, after the warm temperature of August, usually at the end of August, beginning of September, we have very good weather during the day, good temperature during the day. But when the sun goes down, cold winds are coming, and we have a very good difference in temperature between night and day. And this is very important for keeping the acidity in the grapes and for the finesse of the wine. So a wine with a lot of alcohol and without acidity is a flat wine. Acidity gives give to the wine more interesting, more alive, and it's also a good guarantee for the future of the wine. And so I'm going to bottle 16, the regular Brunello and also the Riserva. I'm going to bottle the next months. And so 16 is a great vintage. The acidity in the regular Brunello will be a little less than 6, and the Riserva will be a little more than 6. So if you test the wine at the same moment now, 16 is very hard, but I like the wine in this way because I know this wine can age for a very long time.
And you had mentioned earlier that, well, previously, that 15 is very approachable.
15 is one of the best vintages of ever. In my personal ranking of the vintages, I include 15 in the top 3. Because it is a great vintage, is very classic, but on the other hand is very is more approachable than usual. And this is something I had also in 2007, for example, in the past. And so it's a sort of, so in Italy we say to square the circle. I don't know if you use the same. So it is a very good compromise between readiness and longevity of the wine.
Sure. And lastly, what would you call your style? Classic? Would you?
It's very classic.
Classic, right.
Costanti is very classic. So so the style of the wine is coming straight from the vineyards, from the place where the vines are planted. And I try to do the best. Like my ancestors was running the wine. So we try to every year to do better, but without changing the style of the wine, which is coming straight from the vines. I like the wine with personality, and I like very much the wine which express, which are a very good expression of the territory, because there is a lot of very good wine in the world. But so the next step is to talk about the territory. So the wine must be an expression of territory. So we have a special territory in Montalcino, and we have and we also have a variety, which is Sangiovese, which is able to express the uniqueness of this territory. It's like Sangiovese for me is like Nebbiolo for Piedmont, for Barolo and Barbaresco, and very in terms of French wines, if we have to compare, Sangiovese is very similar to Burgundy, to Pinot Noir, as between relation between territory and variety.
And would you say, Andrea, that there is any difference between the Sangiovese in the Montalcino area and the Sangiovese in Chianti area, or what are the differences?
Yes, but also in Montalcino there is big difference between Sangiovese planted, for example, in my area, in the Glestro, 450 meters on the sea level, comparing to the area, the southwest part of Montalcino at the border with Maremma, where we have more clay in the soil, and we have 200, 250 meters lower in elevation. Because Sangiovese is very sensitive, and Sangiovese is not a clone. We can say is a family of clone. And it's very important because that we did the selection of the Sangiovese in the last 30 years. That's why, together with the global warming, we are producing more concentrated wines naturally, because we have a little warmer temperature, but also because we have better varieties now than 30 years ago.
So it's basically what you're saying, that it's a mix of selection, let's say, of clones used in Sangiovese plus the
yes, for example, when I replant the vines like I did in Matricasino 10 years ago, I'm using the best clones I have at the winery, and they draft in the new vines that I'm going to plant. I'm going to do this work maybe in the next 10 years for another small piece of vineyard.
Okay. Any other question? I don't think so. Cindy, has it been a pleasure?
Thank you. Grazie.
It's my pleasure. Thank you very much.
Great job.
Thank you.
So I hope to see you soon.
And the wine and the wine just came in. The wine just came in. So
okay.
we're excited to sell it because it literally just arrived yesterday.
So we start. So we
all bottles.
To reopen restaurants also in Italy. We need to reopen restaurants and start to enjoy the wine, the food, and so now we do at home. We look forward to do it in the restaurant.
Sure.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very
Really
much.
appreciate the time.
Grazie.
Thank you, guys.
Thank
Bye.
you very much. Oh, Cindy.
Ciao.
Ciao.
Thank you.
Grazie.
Ciao.
Ciao.